सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। Yesterday we saw in the 9th and 10th mantra the path of upasana and or the path of meditation or path of action. It is not to be misunderstood that anybody and everybody can jump onto the seat of meditation and acquire or reap its benefits. One has to be qualified in order to meditate. This is what the scriptures have said every single time, that the path of meditation is for the extremely sincere ones and it requires a tremendous amount of preparation. Those who do not prepare for it and try out, they lead themselves into further painful situations. So the language of Upanishad very beautifully contradicting, looking like, seeming like they are contradicting. Andam tamah pravishanti ye avidyam upasate tato bhuya ivate tamaha yau vidyayagam rataha. So those who practice avidya, they enter into tamas, and those who practice vidya, they enter into deeper tamas. So one has to understand what they mean by vidya and avidya there. The vidya there means the path of meditation and avidya means the path of karma. So then how do we learn, how do we seek to apply path of action and path of meditation? So that is given in this 11th mantra. Repeat after me. Vidyam cha vidyam cha yastad vedo bhayagam saha avidyaya mrityum tirtva विद्ययामृतमश्नुते विद्यां च अविद्यां च यह तत् वेद उभयगम सह उभयम सह सह, both of them are equally important. One cannot say that work is worship and I stop there. Most of the semi-intellectuals, they say that I don't need any philosophy or any kind of religion, because my philosophy is very straightforward. My work is my worship. I dedicate myself to my work and I give my 110% to it. Your work may be worship, but there is also an aspect of worship as worship, and that has not to be neglected. Saha, both of them have to have the equal role in life. Okay, let us take time here. Please turn your cell phones, pagers, whatever they are, turn them off. Check once. If you have them, check it out. By mistake. If it goes off again, then I'll go off. Can I start? One thing that really puts me off is when something turns on. Then I'm off. So both this vidya and avidya are required. How is it to be understood? So it says, avidyaya mrityum tirtva vidyaya amrutam ashnute. The path of action, where does it help? How does it help? It helps us cross all limitations. Mrityum tirtva. It helps us cross all limitations across the platform. Body, mind and intellect. We transcend the limitations. So one has to understand as to what these limitations are and what do they mean when we say that we have transcended those limitations. Because one should, if you are following through the entire Upanishad from beginning, the first mantra said, Ishavasyamidagam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bunjita magradha kasya svidhanam tena tyaktena bunjita. Tyaga was emphasized right in the first mantra. Without tyaga, without the aspect of detachment in life, we cannot attach to the Supreme. So first detachment is required. While attaching to the limitations, I cannot transcend to the unlimited. Trying to hold on to both doesn't work. In even the Prarambha Bhashya, in the initial Bhashya, introductory Bhashya, Adi Shankara, without mincing words, he says that path of action will not, cannot, shall not yield Paramatma or happiness. That blissful state is not a result of action. And the Upanishad has maintained that consistent thought. So with the avidya, what do we cross? We cross over the limitations. Limitations of attachment. Limitations of attachment at the physical, emotional and the intellectual level. Performing karma helps us purify ourselves from within. unless that purification or purificatory process is set in motion and we purify enough, we cannot transcend attaching ourselves to the Supreme. It is a mandatory process. So the karma that we use, yesterday we saw kantakam kantakena iva. If there is a thorn that pricks in, you use another such material to remove that thorn and then throw both of them away. So the process of karma, if we can pause here and have a bigger picture as to what this karma means. Karma gets divided into three parts: responsibilities, duties and obligations. Responsibilities are inevitables. We cannot avoid them, we cannot run away from them. Even if you thought that you could avoid certain responsibilities in this life, they will come back in another life, in another form. We cannot avoid them. That is our prarabdha to go through it. So instead of trying to avoid these responsibilities, buckle up and take that responsibility and live a responsible life. Duties, on the other hand, are little different, varied than the responsibilities. Though we use both of them in a very similar fashion, we say that I am leading a dutiful life. But what they mean actually is that I am leading a life of responsibility. Because when we go subtler into this Vedantic understanding, our words should be very clear. So the duties are not inevitables. They have to be performed, but they can be changed. And these duties have certain definite results. Responsibilities and fulfilling responsibilities, you may not get the result that you are demanding out of it. Like you keep doing your responsibility, nobody will even appreciate what you are doing. But that moment when you stop doing your responsibilities out of frustration or various other reasons, you will be censured for not performing your responsibilities. That is what is one of our main complaints. When I do, nobody appreciates. When I don't do, everybody censures. That is the nature of responsibility. If one understands that, 90% of our frustration is removed. The second part, duties. Now what are these duties like? Duties are like your profession. When you perform your professional jobs, those are duties. You perform them, you get a certain result. Here most probably a promotion, a paycheck or something of that kind. And if you want a better result, you will have to put in more into that duty. You don't like that environment, you can change that duty. Because the purpose is not to fulfill that particular job, the purpose is so that I can fulfill my responsibilities by the yield that I get out of my duties. Obligations is humanness in its expression. You need not do it, but you better be doing it. Serving others, helping the needy. When you find somebody in need, to reach out, irrespective of who it is or what it is. You cannot check at that moment, is it somebody who I don't like, I hate, hence therefore I leave them where they are. No, in spite of what they are, reaching out is an obligation. Then we perform all of these day in and day out. But we have to change how we perform them. Puja Guruji, he gives it in a very beautiful sentence. He says, it is not important as to what we do, but it is definitely important as to how we do what we do. How we end up doing what we are supposed to do, that has to change. That defines the texture of your karma. That intention has to change. So when we perform these actions, which are anyway inevitable, perform them in such an attitude that you dedicate it to a higher altar. Perform them also with such an attitude that when we perform, we are not entangled with the doership and the enjoyership. The moment there is a doership involved, automatically there is an enjoyership. There is something that I want to squeeze out of that situation so that I can relish that moment. I can squeeze some pleasure out of it. Again, depending on our Rajasic, Tamasic and Sattvic mental modes, the pleasure that we seek is also different. To see pleasure in irritating others, giving pain and misery to others is called Tamasic Pravritti. They get pleasure out of it. Pleasure out of what? Seeing others in pain. Or you may be thinking that, how cruel people can be, that they cause pain and they get satisfaction out of it. We all do it in one format or the other. Let's take an example. You are in an argument. Whoever it is, you are in an argument. And you know that the other person has wronged you. And you have made your point. You are done. You should stop actually there. No. You will make sure that with your words, gestures and actions, you give it out in such a way that they feel not just humiliated, but they carry the burden of that situation for a long period of time. The longer they carry, the more satisfied we are. As simple as Srimati Shripati. You know you have conveyed your point, you are done. But that last remark, which really penetrates the other person, causing such a pain. And when you see the other person in pain, that is when internally you relish. That is called tamasic pleasure. Rajasic pleasure. Rajasic pleasure is you do it, you do a certain action, and then you are anticipating people around. And when you do the job, you really have put in your heart in it. But that was not to bring out the best in you, but the best was brought out into that action, so that when people look at it, they applaud your effort. They pat your back and you are eagerly waiting. I know I have done my best. Come on, it's now your turn to pat my back. And you are eagerly waiting for it, and when you get it, you feel so thoroughly enjoyed. Rajasic pleasure. I have given you one of the pointers of tamasic pleasure, Rajasic pleasure. Sattvic pleasure, very rarely we come across it. That you do something, you are not anticipating any result, you are not anticipating any name or fame, you don't even care about if there is somebody recognizing it or not recognizing it, you just do your part of the deal. And sometimes you don't even want to be seen in the forefront after having done it. It is not an attempt by that individual to portray humility. That also, that the effort to portray humility is also rajasic pleasure. When somebody comes here, you are so humble. I know. It is a true, in true sense, you do things humbly and you don't even look back if somebody was watching, if you are going to get credit out of it or not. And such people do not bother, even if there is somebody else trying to take credit out of what you have put, it doesn't matter. Because you thoroughly have relished doing it, fulfilling that responsibility, move forward. It is only the Rajasic and Tamasic who will feel that I have been abused, I have been misused because I put the effort and somebody else gets the credit. Sattvic, it doesn't matter. I have done my job. I am so satisfied with what I have done. I move forward. That kind of pleasure we try seeking. Even that effort, sattvic effort, is a satisfaction. What is a satisfaction? I am independent. I don't need anybody's approval. I don't need anybody's, patting my back. There is a satisfaction there. And they survive by that satisfaction. So these identifications of doership and enjoyership has to be dropped completely. But in our understanding up here, we understand it exactly opposite. We tend to understand when the scriptures say you have to drop it, we think we have to drop the action. It is not the action that has to be dropped, it is the doer, the actor. That agency has to be dropped. Hence, therefore, it is not that easy. In order to replace that agency, though I perform it, I dedicate it to the highest altar, so that that agency is replaced by the thought of the Lord. Most of you dedicate your lives. In fact, all of you dedicate your lives. I keep seeing Yuva Kendra members around me, as they were when they are individuals, and then when they get married, there is a change in their behavior, in their pattern, there is a textural change. Then once they have kids, there is a total change. That the priority becomes kids, and everything else that you do is around the priority of kids. You work for them, you slog for them, you sacrifice for them. You are offering everything to that altar of kids. Very limited. My kids only. When it comes to helping out somebody else for their kids, you may do it out of your initial gesture of help for a couple of days, maybe a week or two. After that, I think they are misusing our help. I think we should withdraw. The calculation starts. But with our kids, there is no calculation. I put it and I put 100%. So that is a very small platform. Higher than that, society. Bigger than that is the community. Bigger than that is the nation. That is why those who dedicate themselves for the nation, it is recognized as bhakti. What do they call it? Desha Bhakti. They never say it as like children bhakti. Though you are dedicating, it is not called bhakti. There is selfishness involved. The higher and subtler it gets, the altar in which you dedicate your resources, your actions, it starts being recognized as bhakti. The highest should be our goal, that we dedicate it to that Paramatma and nobody else. Which means, in our practical day-to-day terms, that whomever I am interacting with, in fact, once I heard Gurudev say from the platform that I thank that Paramatma who is sitting in all these forms, who gives me an opportunity to speak on scriptures so that I can evaluate and educate my own mind. When such a Mahatma, he is on the stage, he says it is Paramatma sitting in these various formats who gives me a platform to talk to my own mind. He was not there sitting as though that, stupid fools, listen, you know nothing, I know everything. No, it was never the attitude. Even that subtlest of the act was dedicating the act to Paramatma. So whoever you interact with, whether it is husband, wife, children, relatives, friends, whatever platform that we are interacting with, you are not interacting with that individual, but you are interacting or serving that person, or in that person, the Paramatma alone. There is this great saint called Narsi Mehta from Gujarat. And he had heard this kind of a concept from his guru, and every day they go for bhiksha. One day this mother looked at that young Narsi and gave some bajra roti, millet roti out of millet, and he was packing it nicely, and she said, wait, I'll get some butter for you, because these taste really good with butter. Fresh, homemade, white one, not the yellow one that we get. Very tasty. That she gave. As he, because it is a little clumsy thing to pack. So he was trying to figure out, there was a dog. It immediately snatched 2 rotis and ran. This Narsi Mehta, with everything that he was holding, he started running behind it. They thought the dog was mad, but they thought that Narsi running behind the dog was actually mad. It is just rotis, I'll give you 2 more rotis. But he wouldn't listen. He ran after that dog. Finally caught up with that dog. And then he snatched those 2 rotis out of the mouth of that dog, still holding on to that dog. And I said, you don't know. It seems taste good with butter. Let me put butter and now you can eat them. And somebody looked at him and said, are you mad? It should have gone. Why did you run after it? I said, didn't our Guru say that even in that being, it is Paramatma, and when you are offering things to Paramatma, you have to offer the best? He got the point. The moment that thought gets into us, that every interaction is giving to that Paramatma alone, our entire intention, intensity behind the act, it changes. It is no more a petty little thought. Whoever you interact with complete heart. This is one aspect of karma which cleans us. The second aspect of karma that cleans us is that I am just fulfilling my responsibility. Once the doership is removed, the enjoyership automatically is removed. Because of the first concept, there is enough vairagya born that you are not anticipating the result, any kind of benefit out of it. When the kartrutva and bhoktrutva, doership and enjoyership are cut, they are the direct feeders into the obnoxious layer called ego. Once you cut both these feeders which fatten the ego, the ego gets automatically eliminated. So performing these karma takes us out of the limitations of bondages of kartrutva, bhoktrutva and the influence of ego. Thus, when such a person sits on the field of meditation, vidyaya amritam ashnute, their entire being is so focused that ultimately they become one with the core of their own being, which is nothing but Paramatma alone. Avidyaya mrityum tirtva vidyaya amritam ashnute. Such a beautiful mantras these are. Now the Guru says the first set of these three mantras, 9th, 10th and 11th, was power packed. So like when I see here into the eyes, you can tell if the concept is clearly understood by the listener or not. And if I find that it was not, I go over it and repeat it again. Similarly, the Rishi here must have seen that the first three mantras that were given was too much to bite. So he is trying to reiterate it in a different pattern. So he takes the next three set of shlokas. Now that you have understood the first three, you have understood the understanding the next three will become easier. So repeat the 12th mantra after me. Andham tamah pravishanti ye asambhuti mupasate tato bhuya ivate tamaha yau sambhutyam rataha. It was not a print mistake in your books. I purposefully broke that word. Ye asambhutim upasate. Now another point of discussion that rattles many of us is the upasana between, now I have to meditate, but then is it the saguna sakara or the nirguna nirakara? There is always confusion. So there are people that I have talked to and I say that who is your Ishtadeva? Whom do you relate to the best? So they look at the altar and after a long pause, I think either I relate to them all equally or I don't relate to them at all. I relate to something which is subtler. The philosophical aspect of it, I relate to it. God, worship, rituals, I don't tune, jamta nahi hai. And when there are serious debaters, those who do the Ishtadeva Upasana and those who do the Nirguna Nirakara Upasana, their debates can be really serious. Now there are some devotees like Lord Narayana's devotees or Lord Shiva's devotees, Vaishnavas or the Veera Shaivas. You go try talk them this Vedanta, they'll cut you short. All this Vedanta is good if it can relate me to my God who is the Supreme. That's about it. Your Vedanta meditation and Nirguna Nirakara is waste. So there has always been this discussion. So here they say, Ye asambhutim upasate andham tamaha pravishanti tato bhuya ivate tamaha yau sambhutim rata, sambhutyam rataha. Those who worship the manifest form of God and those who worship the unmanifest form of God. If their understanding is that the manifest form and the unmanifest form are competing with each other and you are subtler or greater if you worship either one of them according to your priorities, then it is a confusion. This is what exactly Arjuna asks in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He asks Bhagavan, Lord, tell me which kind of upasana is the best. Worshipping God with form or worshipping God without form? And Bhagavan Krishna, in his usual charm and style, he does not give a direct answer. He says, it does not matter whether you perform the upasana to a nirguna nirakara or saguna sakara. What is important is the shraddha with which you perform. That is important. Shraddhaya parayopetaha tene yuktatamamataha. That shraddha is the best. Now Arjuna is confused. I have asked a different question. You cannot change my question to answer something else. So even in a congregation, when I ask questions, people are smart. They add some clauses and then try to answer to the clause that they have added in. I said, I have asked you a question. Who has given you the right to change the question and then answer to that changed question? So Arjuna must have also been feeling like that. So Bhagavan takes him step by step. This is the beautiful steps there, 7 steps, as to how we can evolve from saguna sakara to nirguna nirakara. If we directly go into nirguna nirakara, we may not be, there is always a probability, we may not be qualified for nirguna nirakara sadhana. And what is it that decides whether we are qualified for nirguna sadhana or not, or saguna sadhana or not? It all comes back to, do we live and do we function as a body, mind and intellect? Do I behave like a body, mind and intellect? Or do I work in this world as somebody who has a body, mind and intellect and is using the body, mind and intellect? To put it in an easier format, are we functioning in this world attached to this body, mind and intellect or detached with this body, mind and intellect? Almost all of us come to the category of those who are attached with the body, mind and intellect, behave as a body, mind and intellect, go through the different ups and downs depending on the different changes that occur to the body, mind and intellect. Not just that we are attached to the body, mind and intellect, but we are also attached to the modifications of body, mind and intellect. Those who are young don't want to be called as young. You tell any small kid, a young boy, come here. Yes, I am not young. I am 6 years, 7.5 months old. He wants to appear older. That should continue, right? That psychology of appearing old should continue. You tell somebody who is old that they are old, they take it to such an offense. How can you call me old? In typically those who are very new to Chinmay mission, they get pretty thrown off. Because as a practice to all our Swamis and Brahmacharis, Acharyas, any person, especially the women that we interact with, we call them Amma. So the first time they are here coming and then they, yes, you can come inside, Amma. I am no Amma. I am not that old. There is an instant reaction. You can call me by my name. Okay, they give their name. So I repeat that name and add Amma to that. It doesn't sound good. And I have seen many people. Don't call me uncle or auntie. Call me bhaiya or didi. ठीक है भाई. When you are old, accept, but that modification is not acceptable. We are identified. And then they scream, I am young at heart. Did we ask that? We are talking of your external aspect only. However color you may want to apply on that. I am talking of the hair. For those of you who still are blessed with some hair. Like recently when I did Namaskar to Guruji, so he looked at me and he said, Chandrama Jayata. There is a moon rising on your head. So I should have kept quiet. I said, you are the ideal Swamiji. Yes. Then I really bit my tongue. I shouldn't have said it, but couldn't stop it. Identification at the body level, identification at the mind level. Any silly thought passing, we get identified with the content of that thought. Supposing there was a tornado and there is a huge rain outside. Just because it is raining outside, is it necessary that we get wet? Simple question. There is no trick. There is no trick here. Simple, straightforward question. You come inside. Or if you have to work outside, wear some raincoat or a poncho or an umbrella or something so that you don't get wet. So if there is a sad thought, we immediately get identified with that content of sadness and we become sad. Why are you looking like that? What to tell you? My life is like that. मेरे फूटे कर्म, my bad प्रारब्ध. If you are from Bombay, मेरा bad luck ही खराब है. I can't translate that into English. My bad luck is bad. Okay. If at all I have to translate it. If there is a frustrating thought, we get identified with it. And you say, why are you frustrated? There is frustration. What is it? You don't need to get influenced by that emotion. Just like if there is rain, we don't need to be soaked wet. We can find methods and means to work in spite of that and not get drenched. Similarly, if we have an emotion, we don't need to be identified with it. But with every modification, we keep dancing to the tunes of the mind and its contents. Intellect is the funniest, the identification. Because there is some wrong conception here. if there is a thought proposed, idea proposed, and if that idea is accepted by everybody, the immediate conclusions that we draw is that I am accepted by everybody, hence therefore I am respected. Everybody listens to me, I am respected. And if the idea is rejected, because I am identified with that thought and the thought rejected, I feel that I am rejected, hence therefore I am disrespected. A long time ago there was this meeting, and we had given this person the job to go find the entire needs of that particular job work and create a plan so that he could propose it in the meeting. He must have spent at least 15-20 days researching on it, and then when he presented and everybody were there, and we unanimously rejected that plan. And that person really felt, sunflower at sunset. Toing. He went back home. Around 10:30, 11 at night, I get a call from his wife. Did you know, Swamiji, that he spent so much time on this and effort, and it went off. And he didn't stop for 15 minutes, continued on and on. And now he feels so rejected and disappointed. So I said, Amma, what we rejected was not him, but the plan proposed by him. If you look at it from my standpoint, I see them both as two different. What was rejected was not the person, but the idea of the person. Hence, therefore, the love, concern and care for that person still exists in my heart. What is not accepted is just the plan. सुनने को तैयार ही नहीं है. You don't understand how much effort he has put. I accepted. Point taken. Because of our identification. If this identification exists, I had to go through the entire examples to say that we are thoroughly identified. Hence, therefore, Saguna Sakara worship becomes mandatory. Why is it mandatory? So that it helps us disidentify at the physical, emotional and intellectual realm. That is the benefit of Saguna Sakara Upasana. Sitting in front of the Lord and worshipping that Lord is not a glamorous way of begging. That we come in front of the Lord and we continuously have lists of things. Oh Lord, I have been coming here for so much, I am your constant customer. We almost talk in that language, what to do. I have been your long time customer, I have been coming to this temple for so long, and then I have asked a simple request and you could not take care of this. I am so disappointed. Now I even wonder if you are existing or not. Coming in at the altar of God is not a glamorous begging. But why should we worship that Lord? Devo bhutva devam archayet. So that I can replace the identification and place the Lord as the doer, the Lord as the source of strength for all organs of perception, action, mind and intellect. And for that very reason, all the puja, if you see, you must have read, gone through the Vishnu Sahasranama chanting or Lalita Sahasranama chanting, Rudram. So there is a specific step in the chanting. It is called Anganyasa, Karanyasa, Hridayanyasa. Is you invoke that divine so that you get qualified for worshipping that divine. The idea being that that divinity is carried forward even after that worship is done. As intensely that we do that sadhana, that quickly the identification with three layers evaporates. And an individual who has disidentified with the body, mind and intellect, when they sit on the seat of meditation, they do not have to get frustrated with the body, mind and intellect and their fine tuning. It's already a tuned system that when they sit on the seat of meditation, they get absorbed into the core of their own being, which is Paramatma himself. Which is Nirguna Nirakara. But the Saguna Sakara has its own role. It is that ideal which takes us to the core of our being. It is that ideal when we start invoking that in our world of interactions, we continue that aspect of Paramatma in our day-to-day life, that if I am serving that Lord in these forms, how should I be serving? That change of attitude is what helps us disidentify. Continuing. Anyadevahu sambhavat Anyadahura sambhavat Iti shushrumadhiranam Yenastadvichachakshire. So the Rishi here is trying to say that both these steps of Saguna worship and Nirguna worship, Nirguna is meditating on that Supreme and worshipping that form of the Lord. As you think, so you become. We have heard this enough number of times. Yat bhavam tad bhavati. So when we worship in the upasana that form of the Lord, it not only helps us disidentify from the body, but that kept as ideal, our day-to-day interactions change from vikara to samskara. From vikara we completely change to come back to our equilibrium within. Most of us are in the ionic stage. What is an ion? Something which either has lost an electron or gained an excess electron. Ionic stage. We are like that. Never in a stable platform. And whenever you gain or lose, you are always excited. Either you are throwing tantrums, you are losing your firm base on the ground. Now, looking at her only, I got that example. Chemistry professor hai bhai. We are constantly in an agitated state, never in the equilibrium, never in that balanced state. by having that ideal, it brings us back to that equilibrium, to that balance within. Anyad ahur avidyaya. Anyat ahur vidyaya. Sorry, anyadahuhu sambhavat, anyadahuhu asambhavat. Asambhava is the unmanifest. And what is the result of meditating on that supreme in the Nirguna Nirakara? That you reach to that state wherein there is absolute silence. See, the usual Shanti that we talk about is vulnerable Shanti. Is it quiet now? It is not. There is the vent making the sound. You won't even realize that there is a Shanti. I realize it because I modulate my sound. The higher that sound is, I have to cross over that to reach. And at that time when it stops, the vent and its sound, when it stops, I feel such a relief because I can speak at a lower. Most of us, Shanti is absence of Ashanti. Vulnerable that any kind of disturbance, agitation that can happen and I am done. Our Shanti is like the balance of deck of cards. From that equation, even if one slight change, everything collapses. I need my things this way, and if it is not, then I get worked up. It is okay to expect discipline from ourselves. It is impossible to expect discipline from others. But in our set of deck of cards, in trying to maintain that balance, most of our focus is in trying to gain that balance by disciplining other components, which is impossible. And little thing happens, it collapses. That is why this silence is not called Shanti, it is called Prashanti. That silence which exists in spite of the presence of noise or the absence of noise. Shanti or Ashanti. And that Nirguna Nirakara sadhana takes us to that absolute silence called Prashanti, where no vikara exists. With that mind, with that kind of supreme silence, when we enter into the world, such people bring automatic Shanti into everybody just by their presence. Not out of fear, not out of any such other components. Just their presence, we feel so peaceful. It is that contagious. In spite of chaos around, you can go through the interactions with the world outside without getting distracted and disturbed by it, plus providing that balance to everything that you interact with. That is the effect of Nirguna Nirakara Upasana. Meaning, stop trying to change the world, change thy own self. Stop trying to discipline the world, discipline thy own self. Once that is gained, the rest of it is a piece of cake. In other words, don't talk the talk, walk the talk. First apply it on self. But there is a slight chance of missing a very subtle point. When we take this path seriously, when we are trying to change our lives, it seems to be a source of agitation that others around us are not changing, hence therefore I am frustrated. That is where Gurudev's words come handy. He says, when you deal with yourself, you deal with your head. When you deal with the world outside, you deal with your heart compassionately. Meaning, if you put yourself into their shoes, you would understand you could have blundered even more. Be compassionate with the world. Even if you have to correct them, do it out of the platform of compassion, not out of frustration. Most of us, while we are trying to correct the world around, we are agitated. That should not be the platform. It should be from the platform of compassion. What is the word? Empathy. When can you empathize? When you know. I read a very beautiful statement on Reader's Digest. Some quotes are really good. Somebody is ahead of you. Don't get jealous. With your sincerity, you would be there one day. Somebody is below you. Don't be mean to them. Why? Because not long ago you were there. How do you develop that compassion? Because you have come through that path and you thoroughly know as to why somebody can do something wrong. Give them a benefit of doubt. But work on yourself. Because that silence which does not have these vikara, which brings you back to that prakriti or that balance within, that has to be worked on thoroughly. So the result of this, Saguna Sakara and Nirguna Nirakara is given in the 14th mantra. Sambhutim cha vinasham cha yas tadvedo bhayam saha vinashena mrityum tirtva sambhutyamritamashnuते. See, the word used here is not asambhuti anymore. And the Rishi calls that asambhuti as vinasha. The unmanifest, the nirguna nirakara, he calls it as vinasha. Probably this is what even Buddha said as to what is your experience. He said shunya. It does not mean that Paramatma is shunya. Similarly here, it is the vachyartha, the indicative meaning. It does not mean that Paramatma is vinasha. Having reached there, all vikaras are done with, destroyed. It is such a balance that in spite of vikara around, in spite of distractions around, that you are so rooted in that balance that you cannot be distracted. And that is why they are using the word vinasha. I think there is only one more Upanishad which talks about Paramatma as vinasha. Imagine the audacity of the rishis. Indicatively they call Paramatma as vinasha. Probably because they are talking to the minds which are still attached to all the vikara. So what is the result? When you reach there, all this vikara, these agitations and the source of agitations are done with, are destroyed thoroughly. So they are not indicating that the distractions that we feel today, which we blame the entire world around us to be the cause. The Upanishad is not trying to intend saying that the cause which we blame as the world around will be destroyed. It is that which is getting agitated that will be destroyed. Why do we get agitated? Because of identification. That is removed with this Saguna Sakar. I will tell you two examples. If I call out for, I don't know why this name popped up in my head, Ghelubhai Patel. Can you please answer? At least raise your hand. Why is nobody raising the hand? Because I know very clearly I ain't that. I am not that Ghelubhai Patel. So if I start scolding that Ghelubhai Patel, you Ghelubhai Patel, you are such stupid. Does it bring in even a ripple of agitation in your head? In fact, you will be viewing me as the biggest comedy show. Nobody is here with that name. Why is he scolding that fellow? Isn't it? But because of our identification, now the second example. Say supposing somebody called you a donkey. Gadhe? Because donkey doesn't have the same punch as gadhe. You donkey, it goes flat.
So you ass.
Okay. I didn't hear it today. So when somebody calls you that, whatever he just said, I didn't say it, he said it. When somebody calls you that, we instantly turn around. तू गधा, तेरा बाप गधा, तेरा खानदान गधा, जा. Not just you, your family, your ancestors, everybody is a donkey, go. What does that mean? You are already identified with it and giving value to the person who has called you that. And why are we getting agitated? It is because of our identification. Suppose, definitely you are not a donkey. You know that. Why do you have to react? Because it is not true. You don't need to react. And you take the other side. Maybe you are that. Maybe. Even when you are that, why should you get agitated? Because you know that you are that. You know, this identification and the effects of identification, we neglect that entire chapter in our life. If we analyze it thoroughly, what are the causes of my disturbances and agitations? We would be surprised that it has nothing to do with the world around. It has everything to do with my own identifications. Once there was a Mahatma and two students were quarreling and they called each other bad names. So they went into a Malla Yuddha. They were fist fighting. So both of them were brought in front of that Mahatma. And then he finally heard them. He said. This is called Shanti. So he said, and then finally it came down to one person calling the other person some name. So he looked at that person. You tell me, when somebody calls you that, would you not be hurt? The Mahatma's reply is worthy to note. He said, कचड़े के ढेर पे बैठोगे तो कचड़ा नहीं आएगा तो और क्या आएगा? Amazing reply. If you are sitting in a trash can, what will be dumped at you is nothing but trash. Get out of the identification and you will see that nothing can penetrate. So the focus here is solely on that identification which you get rid of in the Saguna Sakara. In the Nirguna Nirakara takes you into that silence. Wherein we get qualified for Ishavasyam Idagam Sarvam, that experience. Now, having explained it thus far, the Rishi is very compassionate. Why is he that compassionate? Here Rishi is Yajnavalkya. Because the entire Shukla Yajurveda was given out by Yajnavalkya Rishi. And this is a part of it. He understands. Though we listen to it, though we hear it, though we try to understand it, what we lack is the strength to support our understanding, so that we can take that leap of faith and start working at it. Hence, therefore, the compassionate Guru uses the last 4 mantras as a prayer, as a sincere prayer. Though many commentators comment on this 4 mantras as the mantras to be chanted by somebody on deathbed. And in orthodox formats or orthodox conditions, you will find that these 4 mantras are chanted only on deathbed. When somebody is, some old man is lying on the deathbed, everybody around is chanting that. Here deathbed is not the death of the body, but what they are trying to say is the death of the ego. And for death of that ego, our efforts are lacking that strength. Because our understanding, though may be complete, it does not have the backing, it does not have that support of that strength. So what is the best way to gain that strength? Because we have seen through the entire mantras that the support of the support, the support of the entire universe is Paramatma alone. So if at all you have to gain strength, who can give us the strength? Not the mortals again, not the limitations again, not the conditionings again. It is that Paramatma alone who can give us that strength. So the last 4 mantras focus on that aspect. Hiranmayena patrena satyasyapi hitam mukham tatvam pushanna pavrunu satya dharmaya drishtaye. Hey Pushan, probably Pushan is the name of Lord's son, which means the nourisher. Probably because Yajnavalkya's Ishtadaiva must have been Lord's son, because his guru was Lord's son himself. And this Upanishad given by Yajnavalkya, definitely when he thinks of God, see, those who are whatever they are devoted to, when they have to take the name of the Lord, only that form of name of God alone comes in. When you see something wrong happen, you say Ram, Ram, or then you say Krishna, Krishna, or Narayana, whatever be that name that which you are used to. So here he must have been the Upasak of Surya Bhagavan. So he says, Hey Pushan, O nourisher. And even if you cross the format or the Saguna Sakara, Paramatma can be called as a nourisher, because without whose nourishment none of us can survive. And it's an apt name for Surya, because if from this cosmos Surya was taken away, it will not be a cosmos, it will be a chaos. Everything seems to be in its own balance because of this nourisher. So, Hey Pushan, Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasya Mukham Apihitam. The mantras are directing me towards that absolute truth. But it seems to be covered as though, Iva Shabdataha, it seems to be covered as if with a very distracting glow. Hiranmayena Patrena. And what is this distraction? Distraction is our materialistic world. One of our Swamijis, who used to be in Vrindavan, Akhandanandji Maharaj, he used to define Jagat. He used to speak in chaste Hindis. Very rarely he used to humor, but some of them when he did was amazing. जगत माने क्या? जो जब 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 चमके साधक को भटकाए, वो जगत. What is jagat? That which has these enticing materialistic things, which seems to be more attractive than Paramatma himself, that we get distracted towards them. Underneath such layer is Paramatma as the support, but I am not able to penetrate this worldliness, and hence therefore my prayer. My prayer that you remove apihitam, remove this layer of worldliness that is blinding me. Because the glow is so terrible that it is almost blinding me. I am not able to focus onto the truth. Now if Paramatma comes and says, Bhaiya, why should I remove it for you? So the student says, Satya Dharmaya Drishtaye. Because I am sincerely hoping and my means is truthful. And my goal is truthful. As much as the goal is sanctified, the means should also be such sanctified. I cannot sit in front of the God and do my puja, japa, dhyana, go out into the world and live a licentious, untruthful life. In every aspect of my life, I am consciously trying to live a truthful life. No crookedness, no blemish. Consciously trying to live a truthful life. Because of that sincerity which you can perceive, help me reach that truth. Who else can help us? If at all that intensity has to be born, It is that Paramatma alone can help us strengthen our sincerity. Satya dharmaya drishtaye. It's not just that I am focused on the truth. There are many people, they say that, religion and business are two different. When I am in front of the Lord, I am a bhakta. When I get out into the world, I am a vibhakta. It cannot justify. But at least consciously I am trying to live a truthful life. Hence, therefore, help me get across this layer of worldliness. And then continued, he says, in fact, I would say that as a sincere seeker, these 4 mantras, memorize them. And along with your prayers, chant them regularly. Because now you are knowing the meaning too. With the understanding of meaning, when you chant it, it gives that power to that prayer. Because I am assuming that you are all sincerely coming here for that truth alone. And this mantra should help you, take you to that truth. So repeat the 16th one. Pushanne karshe yama surya prajapatya. Ne karshe yama surya prajapatya. Vyuharashmin samuha tejaha. Yatte rupam kalyanathamam tatte pashyami. Yo savasau purushas sohamasmi. Hey Bhushan, Hey Bhushan, O Lord, Sun, Nourisher, Ekarshe, the only seer, the rest of us only attempt to see. He is the witness of everything. So he is the only seer. Ekarshe, Yama. See, because of this word Yama, people think that this is to the Yamaraja. Here Yama means the controller of everything in this universe. Hey Surya. Who is this Surya? Son of Prajapati. Son of Prajapati, Prajapatya. Vyuha Rashmin Samuha Tejaha. It is only in your glow of brightness that this seeming glow of worldliness can be removed. And this is the prayer that we often chant. Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. The seeming glow of the worldliness can be removed only in your beautiful, glorious shine. Yatte rupam kalyanatamam tatte pashyami. By removing this worldliness, layer of attachment to this worldliness, I wish to see your true form. True form, the truth itself. Yosavasau purushaha sohamasmi. Because that supreme that you are is nothing but that which is the conscious principle here. See, we talk about 4 Mahavakyas. In fact, every Upanishad has a Mahavakya. And this is the Mahavakya of this Upanishad. Yosavasau purushaha saha ahamasmi. That truth that I am searching for, I want to experience it as my own self, transcending all limitations. And why am I praying to you? Because you are the nourisher. You are the only witness of this entire universe. You are the very cause of the entire universe to be sustained. Surya Prajapatya. And it is only in your shine, glorious shine, that the seeming brightness of this worldliness and my attachment to it can be burnt away. Hence, therefore, bless me to have that strength, back me my sincere effort to reach to that truth. In the third prayer, third step, now Surya may ask, do you think you are really ready? So he is vouching for his readiness. And what is the readiness that is anticipated? Vayuranilam amritamatedam bhasmantagam shariram Om Kratosmara Kratagam Smara Kratosmara Kratagam Smara. He says, what is the commitment that I am ready to give? I am ready to drop the identification. This prana here, I am ready to merge this into the prana of samashti. This body, the physical frame, I am ready to let go of it. Now somebody who is ready to let go of the body and the prana into the supreme must have been prepared enough to let go of the other things that the body supports on. That is the idea. That I am not just ready to give up the attachment to the world, but I am ready to give up the attachment to the body, mind and intellect. Hence, therefore, give me that strength. He says, Om Kratosmara Kratagam Smara Kratosmara Kratagam Smara. Hence, therefore, let me remember that experience of truth in every single moment of my life, by remembering which, by firmly abiding in which, I know I have nothing else to lose. Kratosmara Kratagam Smara. And in the last mantra he says, Agne Naya Supatharaye Asman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidwan Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidwan Yuyodhyasmad Juhurana Meno Jhasmad Juhurana Meno Bhuyishtam Te Nama Uktim Videma. O Agni, Agni, the sun has both fire and light. O that aspect of Surya, Agni, Supatharaye, Supanthanaha, the best path to take, best path to walk on is the path of spiritual unfoldment. That is the purpose of this life, as a human being, this life. Supatharaye, He Agnaye, O Lord Sun, whose aspect is Agni, illumine my this path, so that I don't forget the goal, I don't get lost in the subsidiary paths. It's like we drive from here to Houston and you have taken an exit to the rest area. You like the rest area so much that you did not proceed forward towards Houston. You get caught up. World is like that. Let me just see this for once, and then you go in and then you are done. Oh Lord, do not illumine the paths that are not to be taken, and keep illumining this path of clarity in my head so that I keep consistently, sincerely working on it. Dhiyo yonah prachodayat. Illumine that path in my head with such clarity that I don't lose track of it. Vishwani deva vayunani vidvan. There are many ways to come to you, but that best path which shall take me to you immediately, illumine that path and let that path of clarity be understood by me and be followed implicitly. Yuyudjhasmat juhuranameno. Remove all crookedness of distractions from my path. This is what even in a bhakti text Tulsidas ji says, that I have tried enough to remove all the klesha from my heart. In Hanuman Chalisa he says, I am being miserable, pathetic at it, that I am not able to successfully remove them. So what am I asking you of? Harahu kalesha vikara. A similar thought here. Probably Tulsidas ji got that thought from this Upanishad. Yuyudjhasmat juhuranameno. All the distractions of this worldliness, please remove them so that I do not get distracted with this worldliness. Bhuishtam nama uktim videma. Hence therefore I offer, and here the Guru is very benevolent. He does not say that it is just me who is offering, along with me all my Sishya Parampara. Yajnavalkya's beauty, that he is not just offering his prostrations to the Lord. He says, with this prostration I am offering the entire Sishya Parampara for the ages to come by. I am praying for them, so that you give them that strength, that clarity, so they can follow this path and reach to that truth. And what is that truth? Ishavasyamidagam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagata. To that truth. Thus this is a very beautiful Upanishad, wherein the highest goal is illustrated, then as to the intermediary ones, the steps to be followed, and then those who do not follow it, what happens to them. What is it that is to be meditated upon? What is the nature of that Paramatma? And do not get lost in the confusion of karma and jnana. Do not get lost again when you again have the clarity of karma and jnana, you may get lost in the sadhana as to nirguna or saguna. But have that clarity, apply it in a step-by-step process so that you can reach there. And in order to reach there, these are the prayers which will strengthen your path to reach towards that goal. Thus we conclude this beautiful Upanishad called Ishavasyopanishad. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.